The day we first encountered humans, I thought my superior intellect would be the deciding factor. How magnificently wrong I was. My name is Vorth 9, and I serve as chief xenobiologist aboard the Supremacy vessel, Eternal Dominion. For 3 cycles, we had been monitoring this backwater planet called Earth, cataloging what we assumed were primitive life forms. The dominant species? Bipedal creatures who called themselves humans. Laughable, really. Commander Vorth 9, my assistant, Nix 12, buzzed through our communication array. The reconnaissance probe has returned with disturbing data. Disturbing? I almost chuckled. What could possibly disturb a being of my advanced capabilities? Proceed with your report, Nix 12. Sir, the humans, they consume the universal solvent. I paused my analysis of their atmospheric composition. Universal solvent? He meant dihydrogen monoxide, obviously. Water. The substance that could dissolve most known materials across 47 different star systems. The liquid death that had claimed entire civilizations. Clarify your statement, Nix 12. Surely you mean they utilize it for industrial purposes? No, sir. They drink it. Voluntarily. For pleasure. My tentacles went rigid. That was impossible. Every species in our galactic database treated water as a weapon of mass destruction. The Zephyrians used it to melt through battleship hulls. The Quantum Collective employed it as their most feared torture device. And these, humans, they consumed it recreationally? Show me the footage immediately. The holographic display materialized before me, and what I witnessed defied every law of biological survival I had studied for 2 centuries. A human female, approximately in her 3rd decade of life, lifted a transparent container filled with pure water. Without hesitation, without protective gear, without even a moment's pause, she tilted it toward her mouth and drank. Not only did she survive, but she appeared refreshed afterward. By the 7 moons of Arcturus, I whispered, what manner of creatures are these? Commander Zale Prime's voice crackled through the intercom. Vorth 9, report to the bridge immediately. We have a situation. I glided through the corridors of our ship, my mind racing. A situation? What could be more significant than discovering a species immune to universal solvent? The bridge buzzed with activity. Our tactical officer, Bren 8, manipulated holographic displays showing Earth's surface. Commander, we've detected massive water reserves across their planet. Oceans, rivers, lakes, the entire surface is contaminated with the substance. And the humans? They live directly adjacent to these water sources. Some even swim in them. Swim. In water. The very concept made my exoskeleton shiver. Commander Zale Prime, a being whose strategic brilliance had conquered 17 star systems, looked genuinely perplexed. How do we proceed? Our standard invasion protocols assume the inhabitants fear water. We plan to threaten them with water bombardment. Sir, I interjected, perhaps we should reconsider our approach. These humans appear to have developed an immunity to what we consider lethal. Immunity? Zale Prime's optical sensors focused on me. Or perhaps they've evolved beyond our understanding. Before anyone could respond, our communications array erupted with incoming signals. Hundreds of them. All from Earth's surface. Sir. Communication Officer Lix 4's voice pitched higher than usual. We're receiving transmissions from the planet. They know we're here. Impossible. Our cloaking technology they're sending us mathematical sequences, sir. Prime numbers. Music. And. Lix 4 paused, clearly confused, something they call memes. Memes? I accessed our linguistic database. The term didn't translate properly. Some form of cultural information transfer? How primitive. Put their primary transmission through the main speakers, Zale Prime commanded. A voice, surprisingly clear and confident, filled our bridge. It belonged to a human male. Greetings, visitors from beyond our world. My name is Marcus Reed, and I represent the people of Earth. We've been aware of your presence for approximately 72 hours. We'd like to extend an invitation for peaceful first contact. The bridge fell silent. They knew. Somehow, these technologically inferior beings had detected our advanced cloaking systems. Furthermore, the human continued, we understand you might be concerned about our planet's high water content. Please don't worry. We're quite fond of the stuff. In fact, we'd be happy to share some of our finest varieties with you. We have something called coffee that's particularly delightful. Coffee? Another term that didn't translate properly. Bren, 8 frantically manipulated his tactical displays. Sir, I'm detecting no weapon signatures. No defensive arrays. No shields. They're completely vulnerable. And yet, I mused aloud, they detected us when no other species has managed such a feat. Commander Zale Prime made a decision that would change everything. Open a communication channel. Let's see what these water-drinking anomalies have to say. The main screen shimmered, revealing the interior of what appeared to be a primitive command center. The human male, Marcus Reed, sat calmly behind a simple desk. He wore no protective equipment despite being surrounded by what our sensors confirmed was water vapor in the very air he breathed. Welcome, Marcus said, smiling. Actually smiling. We hope your journey wasn't too difficult. Space travel can be quite taxing. Zale Prime leaned forward. Human Marcus Reed, I am Commander Zale Prime of the Supremacy Fleet. We have come to assess your world for potential integration into our collective. Integration? Marcus raised what humans called eyebrows. That's a fancy way of saying conquest, isn't it? The directness caught us off guard. Most species either cowered in terror or attempted futile displays of aggression when faced with our technological superiority. Your species appears to possess certain, unusual characteristics, I interjected. We are curious about your relationship with dihydrogen monoxide. Marcus looked confused for a moment, then laughed. Actually laughed. You mean water? Yeah, we're pretty fond of it. Can't live without the stuff, actually. Why do you ask? Can't live without it. The implication staggered me. Water is considered a weapon of mass destruction throughout our galaxy, Zale Prime explained. It dissolves most known materials and has been responsible for countless extinctions. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. I suppose that makes sense. Water is pretty aggressive chemically speaking. But we've had millions of years to adapt. Actually, we're mostly water ourselves. About 60%, give or take. 60%. Water. They were talking containers of universal solvent. That's not possible, Bren, 8 whispered. Would you like me to prove it? Marcus asked cheerfully. He reached for something off-screen and produced a clear container filled with what our sensors confirmed was pure water. Without ceremony, he raised it to his lips and drank deeply. Several of my colleagues made sounds of distress. Refreshing, Marcus commented. Now, about this integration business. What exactly did you have in mind? Before anyone could answer, alarms began sounding throughout our ship. Red warning lights bathed the bridge in ominous illumination. Sir. Lix 4's voice bordered on panic. Multiple craft approaching our position. They're moving at impossible velocities. Impossible velocities? Zale Prime demanded. How impossible? They're not using any propulsion system we can identify. No energy signatures. No exhaust. They're just moving. On the tactical display, dozens of small craft surrounded our position. They looked primitive, almost organic in design. Yet they maneuvered with precision that challenged our own advanced fighters. Marcus's voice cut through our confusion. Those would be our welcoming committee. Don't worry, they're just here to say hello. Your vessels, I stammered, they violate several laws of physics. Do they? Marcus grinned. We prefer to think of them as creative interpretations. Humans have always been good at finding unconventional solutions to problems. Unconventional. That might have been the understatement of the millennium. Marcus Reed, Zale Prime's voice carried a note of something I'd never heard before. Uncertainty. Perhaps we should discuss this integration concept more thoroughly. Absolutely, Marcus agreed. But first, would you like to come down for dinner? We're having seafood tonight. Caught fresh from our deadliest oceans. Seafood. From their oceans. Of pure water, and somehow, impossibly, Marcus Reed made it sound like an invitation we couldn't refuse. 3 hours later, I found myself in the most terrifying situation of my existence. Sitting in what humans called a restaurant, surrounded by containers of water, watching Marcus Reed consume something called lobster bisque. It's made with heavy cream and butter, Marcus explained cheerfully, spooning the liquid into his mouth. Caught these beauties from the Atlantic Ocean yesterday. The Atlantic Ocean. A massive body of pure water teeming with life forms that somehow thrived in the universal solvent. My scientific understanding of biology crumbled with every word. Commander Zale Prime sat rigidly beside me, his optical sensors fixed on a glass of what Marcus had called ice water. Frozen water. They had weaponized it into solid projectiles and served it as a beverage. Marcus Reed, I began carefully, your species has existed in proximity to water for how long? Oh, millions of years. We actually evolved from aquatic creatures originally. Spent quite a bit of time swimming around in oceans before we figured out how to walk on land. Swimming. In oceans. Of water. For millions of years. And you never developed protective equipment? Marcus laughed that disturbing human sound again. Protective equipment? For water? That would be like wearing armor to breathe air. Actually, now that I think about it, we do have equipment for going underwater. We call it scuba gear. Want to try some diving later? Diving. Into water. Voluntarily. A human female approached our table. She had introduced herself as Elena Martinez, apparently some form of diplomatic representative. In her hands, she carried a tray containing multiple glasses filled with various liquids. I thought you might like to sample some of our local beverages, Elena said, setting the tray down. We have sparkling water, flavored water, coconut water, and this lovely mineral water from the Alps. All water. Different varieties of the same lethal substance. The sparkling water is particularly interesting, Elena continued. We've infused it with carbon dioxide gas under pressure. Creates a delightful fizzing sensation. They had carbonated water. Turned it into an even more aggressive chemical compound. For pleasure, Bren, 8, who had accompanied us to the surface, stared at the glasses with undisguised horror. How do you survive contact with these substances? Well, Marcus said, reaching for the sparkling water, we're mostly made of the stuff, so it's pretty compatible with our biology. He took a long drink. Nothing beats good hydration after a long day of first contact negotiations. Hydration. They had a word specifically for the voluntary consumption of water. Marcus Reed, Commander Zale Prime spoke slowly, what would happen if we attempted to use water as a weapon against your species? The question hung in the air like a toxic gas cloud. Marcus and Elena exchanged glances, and something passed between them. Something that made my exoskeleton tingle with warning signals. Well, Marcus said thoughtfully, that would be unfortunate. You see, threatening Earth's water supply would be like threatening our children. We tend to get protective about things we love. Protective how? I asked, though I suspected I didn't want to know the answer. Elena smiled, but it wasn't the warm expression Marcus had been displaying. This smile had edges. Sharp ones. "Let me show you something interesting." She produced a small device and activated a holographic display. The image showed what appeared to be a human military installation. "This is our Pacific Fleet," Elena explained. "Approximately 300 vessels, all operating on and under the ocean's surface. Each one powered by water-based systems. Each one crewed by humans who consider the ocean their natural habitat." The display shifted, showing massive submarines moving through underwater canyons like predators hunting prey. "And this is our Atlantic Squadron. 600 vessels. Also water-based. Also crewed by humans who breathe water using mechanical assistance and consider underwater combat their specialty. Water-based combat. They had turned their weakness into a strength." "But that's not the interesting part," Marcus added casually, taking another sip of sparkling water. "Show them the weather division, Elena." The holographic display changed again. This time, it showed massive installations that seemed to stretch into the planet's atmosphere. "Weather control," Elena said simply. "We've learned to manipulate water in all its forms. Rain, snow, fog, hurricanes, tsunamis. When you've lived with something for millions of years, you tend to figure out how to use it creatively." They controlled weather. Weather made of water. As weapons. "Oh, and Marcus," Elena continued, "should we mention the space program?" "The space program?" Marcus's grin widened. "Absolutely. Elena, our guests might be interested to know that our space vessels use water as fuel, coolant, radiation shielding, and life support. We literally cannot operate in space without massive quantities of the stuff." My mind reeled. They had built their entire technological civilization around the one substance that destroyed every other known species. How? The word escaped my vocal apparatus before I could stop it. How is any of this possible? Marcus leaned back in his chair, still holding his glass of sparkling water. "Evolution, I suppose. And stubbornness. Humans are notoriously stubborn. When the universe told us water should kill us, we decided the universe was wrong. The universe was wrong. They had declared war on the fundamental laws of chemistry and won. Plus," Elena added, "we're really good at adapting. It's kind of our thing. When we encounter problems, we don't retreat. We find solutions. Usually unconventional ones." "Speaking of unconventional," Marcus said, checking a device on his wrist, "you might want to look outside." Through the restaurant's transparent walls, I could see our landing party's shuttles. Surrounding them were hundreds of humans. Men, women, children, all standing casually in what our sensors confirmed was a light precipitation of water falling directly from the sky, rain. They were standing in rain. Letting it touch their skin. Their hair. Their clothing, and they were smiling. "Rain dance," Elena explained. "Ancient human tradition. We celebrate water falling from the sky. Consider it good fortune." Good fortune. Water from the sky was good fortune. Commander Zale Prime made a sound I had never heard before. Something between a whimper and a mechanical malfunction. "Marcus Reed," he said slowly, "what would your species require to coexist peacefully with the Supremacy Fleet?" Marcus and Elena exchanged another look. This time, their expressions were calculating. "Well," Marcus said, "we're always interested in cultural exchange. We could teach you about water-based technologies. Show you how to use oceans for energy production, weather manipulation, even terraforming. In exchange for?" I asked, though I dreaded the answer. "Respect," Elena said simply. "Recognition that humans might have solutions to problems your species hasn't encountered yet. And maybe, partnership instead of conquest." Partnership. With water-drinking primitives who controlled weather and had turned the universal solvent into the foundation of their civilization, Marcus raised his glass of sparkling water in what appeared to be a ceremonial gesture. To new possibilities, he said. Elena raised her own glass. To the universe, learning that sometimes the most dangerous species is the one that makes friends with danger itself. As they drank their water, I realized something that would haunt me for the rest of my existence. We hadn't encountered a primitive species that needed conquering, that we had encountered a species that had conquered the unconquerable. And somehow, impossibly, they were offering to teach us how they did it, the universal solvent that destroyed civilizations across the galaxy. Humans called it Tuesday, and they wanted to invite us for dinner. Commander Zale Prime reached for his communication device with a trembling appendage. All ships, he transmitted, cancel invasion protocols. Initiate diplomatic procedures. He paused, looking at Marcus and Elena, who continued drinking water like it was the most natural thing in the universe. And someone, he added quietly, find out if they have anything stronger than water. I have a feeling we're going to need it. Marcus grinned. Actually, we do. Ever heard of coffee? It's water-based, but with a kick. You're going to love it. Water-based. With a kick. Of course it was.